Joining us is Angela Harrelson, the aunt of George Perry Floyd, and his cousin, Paris Stevens. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
So tell me, how are you? How is your family doing, and how have you been through all of this?
You know, it's been a roller coaster. When this, it just seemed like when it just seemed like it just happened yesterday because I'm constantly on the go. The family is constantly on the go. You know, we're trying to advocate for justice and just get our voices out there. And some of us haven't had much sleep because we just want, people to know, hey, this is real. Perry was not just a hashtag for us. You know, we know he's known around the world, and I have to say, we call the family, we know him as Perry, but you guys know him as George Floyd. So if I say Perry, it means George Floyd. And so, we've been on the go, and some of us haven't had much sleep. There are times I'm tired, but we know we can't stop. We know we got to do this. And when this all went down, I didn't know if I could even be a voice, Maya, for him, because I was just so devastated by the loss. But the thing that got me going to be a voice for him is when I think of that image, how he was killed. When I see how he struggled for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, I know it was hard for him. I know he was in pain. I remember seeing that terror in his eyes and him saying the words, I can't breathe. And all he was saying, will you help me? I need help. And he did that for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And that took a lot of courage for Perry because he fought for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And I say that because that was courage in an environment that I don't even know if I could have endured that long. But because he was able to muster out those words, I can't breathe. I said, well, you know what? If he can do that in those conditions, unimaginable, that I can't imagine, that I can find it. I said, God, help me find it in my heart. Give me the energy that I need to be a voice. And that's what got me going.
And so, Paris, what do you want the world to know about you and your family?
Um, the first thing is that we are um, a Christian-based family. And so, with that being said, um, we want people to know that we support each other, um, and that we are so grateful for all of the support that the community has given. Um, the community of Minneapolis and the whole world. Um, our family is huge, it's a very big family. And Harry, he had the personality of the family, huge. And so, he was not only impactful just to us, but he was impactful to those around him.
Clearly, here in Minneapolis, there's been an outpouring of support and the impact that George Perry Floyd had, Big Floyd, as he was known, as a security guard and in the community that he had here. When did you become aware that there were actual people taking care of, preserving, and protecting? And what has been your response to that outpouring?
I think I became aware of this around in June when it really, really hit me. I knew there was something going out there. but I was so wrapped up in my grief and trying to process it all. I would hear these things. I would hear these stories. Someone's putting flowers out there. I'll hear about a kid. I don't know how old she was, or somebody laid a teddy bear. I heard these things, and then it actually didn't hit me to Janelle, the lead caretaker, Janelle Austin, beautiful person, and she reached out to me and she said, "This is what we're doing." And I'm like, "Huh? Can tell me more? Tell me more." And she began to tell the story how people offerings, you know, were being placed out there and how they were preserving. And I was like, wow. And she invited me to come see it. I didn't know if I had the strength, but I said, I got to come. So I went out there and I was overwhelmed. People, the flowers, people, the paintings, this is something that people did out of love and their heart. And it was just, I said, God, I said, I'm not alone. Because see, when Perry, you know, when he when he left me, when he left, when he was killed, it was just me as family. I'm talking about family. I have my husband here, but I'm talking about a close relative. And I'm like, God, I don't have my nephew here. I'm gonna feel so alone now. But when I went out there to Memorial and I saw the love and the outpour, I'm telling you, Maya, it just did something to me. I knew I wasn't alone. And they became my family. When I saw what the community was doing, it was priceless. I mean, they didn't know me, they didn't know Perry, but they knew what was happened to him was wrong. And they wanted to reach out and say, you know what? We care. We're going to stand up. We're standing alone beside you. We're not going to stand behind you. We're not going to stand in front of you. We are going to stand with the family. And it's just been a beautiful thing. It's priceless. I've never seen anything like it. They literally have built that memorial, the community.
Why do you think a global day of prayer is necessary in this moment, for your family, of course, but also for people around the world?
To think that the trial is, well, the trial will be starting on that day. Um, I want people to know that there is hope and we're still going to be um, fighting for this injustice, but we need a higher power to keep us. You know, um, we can't do this alone without going to whoever it is that you worship. We all don't worship the same higher power. I worship God. Others may worship, something else, and that's fine. But you take your moment at this particular time and let's all pray together because prayer heals, prayer changes things. So if we all come together collectively, our different time zones, um, you don't know what can happen, you know? It's like uh, the your hands all wrapped around together. We're giving yourself a big hug from all over the world. I think it's going to be a beautiful thing. And prayer is so powerful. So we can all do this and come together. We don't know what we can change, but this is something that's needed. I'm hoping that this can be like a national day of prayer where it's known across the world like, hey, we put this in the Congress has put this into place that on on March 8th. This is our national day of prayer. So I'm hoping that this can take place.
As a nonprofit organization, almost a year later, what is your vision and your hope for the George Floyd Global Memorial as an organization, as a partnership and a relationship between your family and those individuals who've been caring for, preserving, and really seeing this as an important way to serve your family, but also tell your story and make sure that this continues for future generations. So, what is your vision or your greatest hope for George Floyd Global Memorial?
You know, it's such a sacred place and it's priceless. That coming out there providing a place for peace and just to think and to express your condolences. When I think of the George Floyd Memorial and the vision I have for it, because of those beautiful community leaders, I see it in a place that people come from around the world, everywhere, because the world is the one that was with us throughout all of this. People from Germany, Bethlehem, Switzerland. And, you know, it's already have become not just a tourist, any tourist site, but a sacred site. And I see it as a place where people come, they pay their respect from all over the world, but they can see it as a beautiful museum where people have gave their offerings, their paintings. Um, that's what I see. And then I visualize education programs. Then I visualize, well, as it grows, there'll be a place for people to have jobs. So I feel like whatever happens eventually as it grow, it can give back to the community. So I see there's a place that is expanding for the world to come and see, pay their respect, show their condolences, but at the same time, a place where they can have programs educating about systemic racism, um, have a place where people can come and speak from around the world. It's a place that's going to be that I want to be very well known and respected and be up to that level, just as Graceland, just as Graceland, except is in honor of Perry, George Floyd, because he sacrificed himself. You know, that day he preached his own funeral, but it was the awakening. When he was killed, it was an awakening for America because over 400 years, we did not have the acknowledgement of that racism, about slavery. We didn't have the acknowledgement. We were just, we were preaching to the choir. It was like, I remember so well talking about racism to people, bringing it up. And my response, especially to my Caucasians, to most of them, I'm going to say most of them, well, that happened 400 years. Why aren't you over it? Now, see, when you say something like that, then it takes away the acknowledgement. It takes away the genuineness that you're trying to convey the message to them. It gets blocked. But that day Perry died, they saw something that was so inhumane, and they know that race played a part of it. They couldn't deny it. And Black America said that day, we reached an apex, and it was two words: no more, no more. And I want people to know that equality is for all. And over so many years, 400 years, we have literally, Black and brown people, been negotiating equality, negotiating the right of us. We had to negotiate to vote. We even had to negotiate whether or not we were going to be educated, because education was something that was illegal to slaves. We didn't have those options of equality. I want people to know more about the history of slavery. And I see a book center out there that people are writing books about the way slavery should be told, the things they left out, all the Black heroes and inventors that Caucasian people have never even heard of. This is a chance for us to tell our story. And all those paintings that they see out there have a meaning and a message behind it, that we are equal, that equality is not an option, it is our birthright, because God created us all equal in his image.
This beautiful day of prayer, this idea that you're inviting the global community around the world to join you on March 8th for a global day of prayer.
Yes.
So, how do you see God moving? How do you see humanity, love, light, the divine moving on that day? And what's your vision for the global day of prayer?
The global day of prayer is just, I am looking forward to this, because I know there's going to be protests and marches on that day. But the day of prayer is the day to balance our everything. Because you know what? God was in all of this from the beginning. And like I tell many people, Perry preached his own funeral that day. He really did. And God saw what wasn't right. And many people don't know that Perry was very religious. He loved the Lord. And he and his mom joined the church the same day. So God knew he was a man of God. And when that happened to him, that it's like a whirlwind came through. It just moved God's spirit around this country to say, enough is enough. I need an awakening here. And he just moved right around the world. We could not control that. And one of the reasons was because of the pandemic. So God allowed people to see it whether they wanted to see it or not. God set all of this up where people were home to see it. And there was a 17-year-old girl, 17 years old girl, that God gave the strength to hold that telephone. Fearless. She held it and she recorded it. 17. She did it. Without her camera, he'd be just another Black man that was killed by the hands of the police. So all these things, the evilness, the control, what they did to him was horrific. But what they didn't know, that God had all these things in place. We didn't know it then, but as you look back, all these things were in place. The camera, a 17-year-old, the pandemic, everything that was allowed to take place, people home, countries moving around the world, languages we could not even speak, but spoke. And all of this on March the 8th, why not give the respect and the honor to God and what he did to allow us to see the awakening, to say no more. And so that prayer is going to be special. And it's about people coming together, not for hope, for peace. And through that prayer, God is going to give us the strength to make it through the days of this process. So we need that. We need that day of prayer because it's been with us because God has been with us all along. So I was happy that they came up with this because I was planning on praying at home. I said, God, I'm going to pray at home before I go down there. But when the world is going to be praying with me, ooh, that moved me because it was the world, it was the community of Minneapolis, it was America. But guess what? The whole world stepped in to move this, to say no more. And guess what? We want the whole world to be with us on that day, March the 8th, of prayer.
Thank you. And thank you so much for this generous invitation to prayer.
Yes.
Of course, your nephew touched so many people. For people in Minneapolis and St. Paul, of course, it was very personal. But this impact around the world
Mm,
and the generosity that you've shown, and the warmth and the love and the way that you've embraced the community
mm,
during such a indescribable experience. And so on behalf of the global community, thank you uh, for the grace and the graciousness to invite everyone to join in prayer on March 8th for this global day of prayer. And so, for those who don't know about your amazing large family, um,
goodness.
tell me tell me about your siblings, your sister Sissy, George Perry Floyd's mother, but also your mother. Um, it's a pretty amazing matriarch. So you come from a beautiful, beautiful family. So for those who aren't aware, tell us more about how big and broad
God.
this family
Oh,
is.
well, my mother had 14 children. One died named Frank Jones about a few months after birth. So she raised 13, but she had 14, 10 girls and 4 boys. And we didn't have any. I'm going to be honest with you. Um, my parents were sharecroppers, they were uneducated. We didn't have anything. We lived in an old raggedy shack. We had an outhouse. We didn't have hardly any running water. We pumped our water in a silver bucket, and then we heated it as much as we could on the stove to take care of our personal needs. So we made my parents, because they're sharecroppers, they worked out in tobacco fields, cornfields, and then they trained us how to work out in the cornfields and the tobacco fields, so we were able to survive. Now through and and I saw the strength in my mother. Sometimes when I worked through when I worked alongside her in the fields. But here's the thing: we were poor, but there was a lot of love there. And every time family would get in trouble, everybody always come home. And when I look back on it, we didn't have much of anything, but everybody came back. We had an outhouse. We didn't have hardly no place, no heat the water at. But they came home because of the love. Mama could make scraps out of jumbo to help feed us. Seriously. But her parents, my grandfather, Thomas Hillary Stewart, he didn't have anything. My great grandfather, Hillary Thomas Stewart, was born a slave, 1856, and he got his free papers at the age of 8 years old. Now his wife name was Larcenia Stewart. That's whose Perry's mother was named after. He was named after his great grandmother. They were, which was a slave as well. So my great grandfather, who was born a slave, by the time he was 21, he accumulated over 500 acres of land. Now, the land was stolen from us because they were uneducated, didn't know about taxes. So we lost all of that. My mom said my great grandfather was very heart stricken because of that. So the family's been through a lot of losses, but they kept going because of hope, because of hope. And talk about Perry's mom. I remember when I first laid eyes on Perry, was about like 4 years old when I first saw Perry, and I'm 12 years older than him. Sissy often came to live with us. His mother, Sissy, came to live with us, and I was excited. See all my sisters when they came by, because I'm the baby girl. So I was excited to see everybody, and she bought Perry. She would always bring Perry. And then well, first I met Perry, but she always bought Jaja and Tanya. They always came over. And because she had a rough time, she spent the last part of her years as a single mother raising her grandkids. And so eventually, when Sissy got on her feet, she took Perry and she took her kids and they moved out to Houston. Well, Perry used to run around bare feet all the time, didn't like to wear no t-shirt, always cracking little, he was a little jokester. We thought he would look, me and Sissy thought he looked like Flip Wilson. And most young people don't know who Flip Wilson was, but we thought he was the cutest little boy, looked like Flip Wilson, and he was gonna be a comedian. Honestly. But Perry he wasn't thinking about all of that, and his father was an incredible musician, played with famous people, and back in those days. Perry's side of the father's side, you talking about people who were talented in music, they were like the Winings. Honestly, them people could sing their tail off. But on his mother's side, music as well. So both musical sides, sports and everything. But when Perry moved out to Houston, we continued to see each other through as time went on through Thanksgiving dinners, and I would hear about him doing so well in football and basketball, and we was really proud of him.
Your little niece, his daughter, really left an impression on the hearts of people around the world.
Didn't she know?
How is she? How is she doing?
She's doing good. She has a really good support system right now as well. I know, of course, she has her challenging times not being able to see Harry anymore. Um, but her mom, us as well, we're all there um, to support her, you know.
And kudos to her mom, Roxanne. But as what I know through the family talking, because we have like a group text to check on everybody, so we have a group text every week. So she's doing good. She's very resilient. I don't know if she understands the impact of everything because she's very young. She's still, she's not even 10 years old. And so, but she knows he's not here. She wish she was here, and I don't think she's really going to understand the impact of the loss till she, get older and say, gosh, I wish my dad could walk me down an aisle. Or she meets a boyfriend, and she has advice, for someone to show her how how a real man treats a woman. Those are the things that she's gonna need. And but but she won't understand all of that till she gets older.
I hope that anyone who has taken the time to listen to this interview, whether it's before, during, or after the Global Day of Prayer, that you keep Angela Harrelson, Paris Stevens, and the extended family of George Perry Floyd in your prayers. We hope that you will stand beside them.
Yes.
As you continue in the weeks and years to come and see your vision for the George Floyd Global Memorial come to fruition. Thank you both so much for joining me, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.